My name's Charlie, and I'm 35 years old. I live in Savannah, Georgia, in a quiet two-story home with white shutters and a porch swing Sarah always said made our house feel like a storybook. That porch swing was the first thing we bought together when we moved in 7 years ago. Before the mortgage, before the dog, even before the wedding registry was closed. It creaked in the wind every evening like it had something to say. We used to sit out there and talk about everything. The future. Kids. Vacations we'd take one day. Even stupid little things like what kind of fence would look best around the yard. Looking back now, I don't know when the conversation stopped being about dreams and started being about logistics, who was picking up groceries, who left the garage light on, who forgot to take the chicken out of the freezer. I guess the part that haunts me most is that, until it all fell apart, I thought we were good. Not perfect, but strong. Solid. I thought we'd made it through the hardest part of marriage already, those shaky first few years where money was tight, tempers were short, and every tiny miscommunication felt like the end of the world. But we stuck it out. We compromised, we forgave, we learned each other's patterns. At least I thought we did. It was a Thursday when it happened. I remember that specifically because I had been in New York for a business trip, some regional strategy meeting that ran long and accomplished nothing. The kind of thing you smile through and then promptly forget. It had wrapped earlier than expected, and instead of staying the night like I'd planned, I caught the last flight home. I didn't tell Sarah. I wanted to surprise her. That was the whole point. I even picked up a bag of her favorite small batch coffee from that little shop near Union Square. She always joked that it tasted like caffeine and God. I thought it would make her smile. I thought maybe we'd share a cup on the porch, talk like we used to. When I pulled into the driveway, it was almost midnight. The house looked normal from the outside. But something felt off. Not in an obvious way, just this quiet unease I couldn't quite explain. The porch light was on. So was the one in the bedroom upstairs. That was strange. Sarah usually fell asleep reading with the hallway lamp, not the ceiling light blazing like that. Then I noticed something else. The front door wasn't locked. That might not sound like much, but Sarah was obsessive about locking doors. I used to tease her about it. You think the raccoons are learning how to open doorknobs now? I'd say. She'd laugh, but she'd double-check the deadbolt every single time. But that night, the knob turned easily in my hand. I stepped inside. It smelled like her, like vanilla and fresh linen. But underneath it, something new. Red wine. Expensive by the smell. Not the cheap bottle we usually kept around. There was music playing faintly upstairs. Some acoustic playlist I didn't recognize. I moved through the living room quietly, coffee bag still in hand, and stood at the bottom of the stairs. That's when I heard the laughter. Hers unmistakably. Then, a man's voice. Low. Familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. The sound stopped me cold. It wasn't loud, more like the tail end of an inside joke. But it was an asterisk made in a way that sent every nerve in my body on high alert. Not panic exactly. More like disbelief mixed with something sharp and quiet. Like a fuse being lit. I climbed the stairs one step at a time, barely breathing. I don't know what I expected to see. I honestly wasn't thinking. It felt like my body was moving on autopilot while my mind stood still. I stopped outside the bedroom door, which was half closed. From the crack, I could see soft light and shadows moving across the floor. I pushed it open gently, and there they were. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, her legs tucked up under her. She was wearing my old college sweatshirt and pajama shorts, her go-to-comfort clothes. She had a glass of wine in her hand. Not our usual mismatched mugs, but the crystal ones we got as a wedding gift. Candles were burning on the dresser, giving the room this warm, soft glow. Across from her, in my chair, was Mark. Mark, her coworker. The one I'd met at a company barbecue last summer. I remember shaking his hand. Thin, well-manicured fingers. The kind of guy who wore designer watches and loafers without socks. I never paid him much attention after that. Just a name in the background when Sarah vented about work. They both froze the second they saw me. You're back early, Sarah said, her voice higher than usual. Too high. She set the wine glass down like it burned her. Mark stood up fast, smoothing his shirt, looking anywhere but at me. Hey, Charlie. I just stopped by. We were going over slides. For the Q4 pitch. I looked around the room. The two plates on the nightstand, the candles, the open laptop playing music, the fact that neither of them had any papers, no notebooks, no sign of a presentation. A pitch meeting, I said slowly, holding the coffee bag like it was the only thing anchoring me. In pajamas? With candles? At midnight. Sarah's expression shifted. Her mouth pulled tight. Annoyed, not apologetic. You're overreacting, she said. It's not what you think. We just had dinner. You've made this weird now. Weird. That was the word she chose. Mark muttered something about needing to leave. He brushed past me with the weakest nod I've ever seen and vanished down the stairs. I stood there in the doorway staring at my wife, the woman I had trusted more than anyone on earth. Her eyes were wide and shining in the candlelight, but she didn't look guilty. She looked cornered. Why didn't you lock the door? I asked quietly. She blinked. I forgot. No. You didn't forget. You always lock the door. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. Silence. I felt something shift inside me in that moment. It wasn't rage. It wasn't heartbreak. Not yet. It was something colder. A stillness. Like realizing a dam had a hairline crack, not enough to break it, not yet, but enough to make you doubt everything behind it. I brought your favorite coffee, I said. She looked down at her lap. I turned and walked out without another word. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car in the driveway for a long time, the coffee bag on the passenger seat, untouched. I stared at our house, our home, and thought about how fast something can change. One moment, you're the guy bringing surprises from the city. The next, you're the guy who doesn't recognize the person you married. Was she telling the truth? Was it really just dinner? Maybe. But even if nothing physical happened, she still looked me in the eye and lied. And something about that broke the first thread. The kind of break you can't unhear, can't unsee. The kind of break you feel deep in your chest, right before the echo starts. The next morning, I sat at our kitchen table, staring at the mug Sarah always used. You're overreacting. That line kept playing in my head like a broken record. It was the way she said it that stuck with me, not defensive, not even ashamed. Just cold. Like I was the one who had done something wrong by showing up in my own house a few hours early. I didn't go into work that day. I couldn't. I called my boss and faked a stomach bug, then spent the entire morning pacing the house. Every room felt different now, tainted somehow. Like someone had moved all the furniture just an inch off. It wasn't what I saw that bothered me the most. It was what I missed. What I had chosen not to see until it slapped me in the face. That's when the replays started. You know how people say hindsight is 20/20ths? They're not wrong. Suddenly, things I brushed off, little shifts, harmless at the time, came rushing back with brutal clarity. About 3 months ago, Sarah got really into running. That might not sound strange, but you have to understand Sarah hated running. I used to tease her about it. She once said, unless I'm being chased or there's a puppy at the finish line, I'm not moving faster than a brisk walk. But one day, she came home with neon pink running shoes and said she was training for a 10K. I remember laughing and saying, since when? She shrugged. Since now. I just need a new challenge. At the time, I admired it. I figured she was taking control of her stress, maybe trying to feel better about herself. I even offered to run with her once. She said no, said she needed solo time. I didn't push it. I told myself I was being respectful, supportive. But then there were the new outfits. The matching leggings and sports bras, the gym selfies posted to her story but never with me tagged. She stopped eating dinner with me some nights, said she needed to fuel differently. Then came the new perfume. Not a gift from me. Not one I recognized. It was stronger, more expensive. She used to save her good sense for dates or events. Now she wore it on Monday mornings. Then there were the texts. I'd catch her smiling at her phone, laughing quietly to herself. And when I walked into the room, her expression changed just slightly. The kind of shift you only catch if you know someone in ** mately. Who's that? I'd ask, playing it casual. She'd wave her phone in the air and say, workgroup chat. Lisa and Mark being ridiculous again. Always Mark. Mark. I remember one night she left her phone on the kitchen counter to take a shower. It buzzed 3 times. I didn't check it. I didn't even touch it. But the name that lit up the screen was his. No last name. Just Mark's smiling face with smiling eyes. I remember feeling something in my gut, but I buried it. She's allowed to have friends, I told myself. Don't be that guy. God, I wish I had been that guy. I wish I had asked questions when I first felt the shift. Instead, I played the role of the chill husband. The one who doesn't snoop. The one who trusts without question. The one who gives his wife space because he believes in her. There was also that night 2 weeks ago, something I can't stop thinking about now. She told me she had to stay late at the office for a last-minute team call with the New York division. Said she might crash at Lisa's place afterward since it would run late. I remember nodding, half asleep, and saying, just let me know if you end up staying out. She kissed my cheek and walked out. Around midnight, I woke up to use the bathroom. Something made me check the GPS tracker in our car app. It's connected to my phone in case the car gets stolen. I don't even know why I opened it. Curiosity, maybe? Boredom? Habit? The car wasn't at her office. It wasn't even near Lisa's place. It was parked across town in front of a boutique hotel. I stared at the map for a solid minute, thinking maybe it was a glitch. Technology isn't perfect. Maybe she took a cab. Maybe she lent the car to someone. Maybe God, anything but what it looked like. In the morning, she came home with coffee and muffins and acted like nothing had happened. Said the meeting went late, they ended up brainstorming over wine, and she just crashed on Lisa's couch. I wanted to ask. I really did. But something in me shut down. I smiled. I nodded. I kissed her temple and said, hope you got some rest. I didn't sleep at all that night. I blamed myself. That was the worst part of it. The self-gaslighting. I convinced myself over and over that the problem was me. That I was the one creating drama where there was none. That I needed to be more trusting, more easygoing, more modern. But now I know exactly what I saw. That look on her face when I walked in on her and Mark? That wasn't surprise. It was panic. Like someone being caught in the middle of a story they hadn't finished crafting. The thing is, I still don't know how far it's gone. Was that night the first time? Or was it just the first time I saw it? And would it even matter? Because trust, once it cracks, doesn't glue back together the same. It stays jagged. Even if you smooth it out, it's never as strong. And now that the crack is there, I keep seeing every conversation, every detail through a different lens. Even her tone has changed. The way she talks to me. She used to say, I love you, like it was a given. Now it feels like punctuation, something she tacks on at the end of a sentence to soften a blow. This morning, when she left for work, she kissed my cheek and said, let's have dinner tonight, just us. No phones. Like she was trying to hit a reset button. But her eyes didn't match her voice. And I didn't say yes. I just nodded, poured myself more coffee, and waited until I heard the door click shut before I finally exhaled. I spent the rest of the day trying to make sense of it all. Sitting in the same rooms we once made memories in, now haunted by questions. Why Mark? Was it emotional first? Did she tell him things about us, about me, before it turned into whatever it is now? Did he listen better? Laugh at her jokes longer? Make her feel seen in a way I stopped doing? Or was it just easy? The temptation to check her phone, her laptop, anything was strong. But I didn't. Not yet. Because something in me wanted her to come clean first. To look me in the eye and admit it. But I was starting to understand maybe she never would. And maybe the real betrayal wasn't what she did with Mark that night. Maybe it was every moment she looked me in the face and pretended everything was fine. A week passed. 7 days of pretending we were okay. 7 days of quiet meals and shallow conversations, of dodging real eye contact and dancing around the word Mark like it was radioactive. It was like living with a roommate who knew how to act like your spouse, but only in broad strokes. The nuance, the comfort, the warmth? Gone. Replaced by small talk and forced smiles. The worst part? She got better at it. Sarah had always been good at managing people, calm under pressure, quick with a save. She could sell confidence even when the ship was on fire. So she played the part of the devoted wife, texting me during the day, how's your afternoon, babe, offering to cook dinner, even sending me a song she said reminded her of us. I listened to it. It didn't. It reminded me of someone trying too hard to cover up a lie with nostalgia. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because part of me needed something real. Something undeniable. And I didn't have to wait long. That Friday, Sarah's company was celebrating its 15th anniversary. They were hosting a big dinner at a hotel downtown. She told me about it offhandedly like it was an errand. It's really just coworkers, she said, swirling coffee in her mug. You'd be bored. Plus, Mark's doing this whole slideshow thing. It'll be all inside jokes and metrics. Mark. Again. I just nodded. Sounds like a blast. She smiled, and I swear it was the most relaxed I'd seen her in days. Like she had just avoided a landmine. I waited until she left the house to get ready at the office, said she was helping with setup. I watched her pull out of the driveway in a blue dress I hadn't seen before. Something new. Tight at the waist, loose at the bottom, just enough to make a statement without screaming it. She didn't kiss me goodbye. After the taillights disappeared, I stood in the kitchen, trying to decide if I was crazy or if I had just been made to feel that way for too long. So I made a decision. I changed into something halfway decent. Button-down, jacket, nothing flashy. I grabbed a bottle of the white wine she always ordered when we went out, the kind she said reminded her of that weekend in Asheville. A little poetic justice, maybe? Or maybe I just needed something to do with my hands. I drove to the hotel and parked 2 blocks away. The event was in the main banquet hall, 2nd floor, full windows, string lights glowing inside. Through the glass, I could see the crowd, 40 or 50 people, laughing, drinking, clapping for something on stage. I waited outside at first, heart thudding like I was about to crash my own wedding. Then I walked in. Nobody stopped me. I wasn't exactly hiding, just moving around the perimeter, staying close to the back. I didn't need to be announced. I wasn't there to cause a scene. I was there to see. And there she was, standing near the bar, laughing, hair down, glass in hand. She looked like the version of herself I hadn't seen in months, free, happy, alive. It hurt to see her that way because I knew that version of her had stopped showing up at home. Standing beside her was Mark. He had one hand in his pocket and the other on her waist. Not accidentally. Not momentarily. Casually. Comfortably. Like they'd done this 100 times. I froze. She leaned in to say something to him and he smiled, the slow, smug expression like he knew a joke I didn't. Then he took her hand. Lifted it. Kissed the back of it. That was it. I walked forward, slow but steady, and reached their table. They didn't see me at first, too lost in their private world. I set the wine bottle down beside them and reached into my jacket pocket. My wedding ring had been on a chain around my neck for a few days. I had taken it off after the night I saw them in our bedroom, unsure if that meant something yet. I still hadn't told her. But now? Now I unclasped the chain, slid the ring off, and placed it gently on the edge of their table. Sarah turned. The second her eyes met mine, everything in her face collapsed. She blinked, and the color drained from her cheeks like someone had flipped a switch. "Charlie," she whispered. That's all she said. Mark straightened up like he was about to say something, but I didn't even look at him. I didn't need to. The entire room had gone quiet. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I didn't need to. My silence was louder than anything I could have shouted. I turned and walked out. As I stepped back into the cold air, the door shut behind me with a soft click, and it felt final. Like something had ended, not with fire, not with a crash, but with a whisper. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood on the curb with my hands in my pockets and stared up at the windows. From outside, the party looked like it was still going. But inside, I knew everything had just shifted. I drove home slowly. The bottle of wine stayed in the passenger seat, untouched. When I got back to the house, the porch light was still on. The swing creaked in the wind. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel welcome there. I sat on the steps for a while, staring out at nothing. The kind of numb that doesn't come from one blow, but from 100 little ones stacked quietly on top of each other. That image of Mark's hand on her waist, it wouldn't leave me. Not because it was obscene. Not because it was public. But because she didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. She let him. And in that moment, I understood something deeply, quietly painful. She didn't belong to me anymore. Not emotionally. Not spiritually. Maybe not for a long time. I had just been the last one to find out. She came home that same night. I knew she would. It was nearly 1 a.m. when the front door creaked open. I didn't move. I was already sitting at the kitchen table, lights off, cup of coffee gone cold in front of me. I hadn't touched it. I just needed something to do with my hands while I waited. The door closed quietly like she was trying not to wake someone. The soft click of her heels on the hardwood made their way through the hallway, slow and uncertain. Then I heard her pause. She knew I was up. She knew exactly what was waiting for her. When she stepped into the kitchen, I didn't look at her right away. Just kept staring at the coffee. Black. Bitter. Unwanted. Like the conversation we were about to have. "Charlie," she said, voice low. "Can we talk?" I didn't say anything. She took a few tentative steps forward, stopping a few feet from the table. I still hadn't looked at her. "It's not what you think," she began. Her voice was trembling. "I didn't expect you to come. He was just being playful." I laughed because I didn't want to embarrass him. "Don't," I said, finally lifting my eyes. That single word stopped her mid-sentence. "Don't lie. Not tonight. Not after that." She opened her mouth like she wanted to object again, but I reached into the drawer beside me and slid a thin stack of papers across the table. Printouts. Messages. From her old tablet. She hadn't used it in over a year. Had forgotten it still synced with her cloud. I hadn't gone looking. Not at first. But after what I saw at that banquet, I needed more than hunches. So I charged it. Opened it. Looked. What I found. Dozens of messages. Buried in an old chat thread between her and Mark. Some dated months ago. "You make me feel like I can breathe again." After Charlie left for that trip, it was the first time in weeks I felt like myself. "You get me in a way he doesn't anymore." Some of them were older than I expected. Some were from nights I remembered vividly, nights she told me she was too tired to talk. When she saw the printouts, she froze. Didn't touch them. Didn't even try to reach for them. "Where did you get those?" she asked quietly, but I didn't answer. Instead, I whispered something I hadn't planned to say. You said you loved me. Yesterday, when I kissed you goodbye for work. You said it like it meant something. She wiped at her eye but didn't respond. The silence between us was no longer awkward. It was poisonous. You lied, I said. For how long? I didn't mean to, she whispered. It just happened. I was lonely. And you were distant. There it was. The pivot. My fault. Distant, I repeated, not angry, just hollow. You know what I was doing during those distant months, Sarah? Working 60-hour weeks. Trying to pay off the deck remodel. Saving up for your birthday trip. She winced but said nothing. You say I pulled away. Maybe I did. But I was never absent. I was never somewhere else with someone else. I stood slowly, the chair legs scraping against the floor. She looked smaller in that moment. Not physically, but emotionally. The way she curled into herself, arms crossed, weight shifting like she couldn't get comfortable in her own skin. I didn't sleep with him, she said suddenly. If that's what you're wondering. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of the absurdity. That's supposed to comfort me? I asked. You emotionally attached yourself to another man. Lied to me. Hid messages. Took his hand in public. But as long as clothes stayed on, I'm supposed to breathe easy. She shook her head quickly. It's not like that. You don't understand. No, I said. You don't. She tried again. I didn't plan any of this. I was just unhappy. And Mark listened. He asked how I was doing. He made me feel. I don't know, visible. And I kept telling myself it was harmless. Until it wasn't, I finished. She nodded slowly. I swear I didn't sleep with him, she repeated. That the line you're drawing now? After crossing every other one? She didn't answer. Just wiped at her cheek again. I walked toward the sink. Ran the tap just so I had a sound to break the silence. I watched the water swirl down the drain and thought, for the first time in our marriage, that there might be no way back. When I finally turned around, Sarah had sat down. Her posture was slumped. Defeated. I still love you, she said. Do you? I asked. That question landed like a brick between us. Because if she did, what did that say about her version of love? I walked over to the table and picked up the stack of papers. Flipped through them slowly. You know what I realized reading these? I said. You weren't just talking about me. You were rewriting me. Turning me into some background character in your life. Telling him I didn't listen. That I was cold. That you were finally free. You told him that. After 10 years. Tears slipped down her cheek. I didn't flinch. You didn't just cheat emotionally. You made me small. Unrecognizable. Like I was just an obstacle to whatever connection you two had. I was hurt, she said. I was confused. Then you talked to your spouse, I snapped. You don't run to someone else. You don't smile at me across the table and then text him that you wish I'd leave for another trip. You don't say, I'm working late and go meet him at a hotel. She looked up startled. I had more than the tablet. I had dates, times, receipts. Her card was still linked to our shared account. 3 different hotels, each lining up perfectly with nights she said she was at the office. She didn't deny it. She didn't have to. All she said was, I don't know who I am anymore. And in that moment I believed her. But it didn't matter. Because I did know who I was. I was the guy who came home early with coffee from New York, excited to surprise his wife. And I was the guy who walked in on a lie. Now, I was just a man staring at a person he no longer recognized. I need space, I said finally. From this. From you. From all of it. She nodded, slowly, like she'd been expecting it. Can we fix it? She asked, barely audible. I didn't answer. Because right then I honestly didn't know. I just grabbed my coat, walked out the door, and let the night air wrap around me like armor. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't want to come home. The days after that conversation felt like walking through fog. Not the heavy, dramatic kind. The quiet kind. The kind that creeps in while the world keeps turning, where you're not entirely sure if you're awake or dreaming. I still went to work. Still smiled at coworkers. Still said thanks to the guy at the coffee shop who knew my order. But inside, I was somewhere else entirely. Sarah stayed in the house. I thought she might leave, go to her sister's or a friend's place. But she stayed. We existed in parallel like 2 ghosts haunting the same space. She moved through the rooms gently as if noise might break me. She'd leave sticky notes on the fridge with small things I bought, almond milk, or took out the trash. She even made my favorite cheesecake one night, left it on the counter without a word. But the air between us was stale. Nothing she did could fill it. And I didn't trust the silence. So, after 4 days of pretending to be okay, I called someone I hadn't talked to in a long time, Ben. Ben and I went to college together. He used to be the guy who could talk his way out of anything, a charming, smart, always had a knack for solving puzzles. After graduation, while I was chasing corporate ladders, he opened a private investigation firm out of Atlanta. We kept in touch for a while, then drifted like most people do when life happens. I hadn't spoken to him in almost 3 years. But I remembered something he told me once, back when we were 25 and both too naive to know what real betrayal felt like. Sometimes, he said, it's not about catching them in the act. It's about knowing you're not crazy. So I called him. He picked up on the third ring. Charlie. His voice was surprised, but not cold. Damn, it's been a minute. Yeah, I said. I need a favor. There was a pause. Then, talk to me. I told him everything. The night I came home early. The banquet. The messages. The hotel charges. My voice shook at certain parts. I didn't try to hide it. He listened without interrupting, which was new for him. When I was finished, he sighed. I'm sorry, man. That's rough. Yeah, I muttered. I just need to know how deep it goes. Say no more. I've got a guy in Savannah. Discreet. I'll loop you in by tonight. And he did. By the next morning, I was connected with a local PI named Jorge. Former detective. Serious guy, but respectful. He didn't ask for juicy details. Just the facts. He told me what he needed: car make and model, work schedule, a recent photo of Sarah, places she usually went. I sent it all within an hour. It felt dirty. Like I was betraying her in return. But then I remembered, I wasn't the one who stepped out first. I was just finally stepping in. I didn't tell her. She kept trying. Little gestures, offering to talk, to reset, to go on a retreat for couples. She'd bring it up lightly, like suggesting a weekend at the lake would fix a rotting foundation. I nodded when I had to. Gave vague answers. But inside, I was holding my breath, waiting. A week passed. Nothing came in. Then, a Thursday morning, I got the call. Jorge's voice was calm. Almost clinical. We've got movement. Thought you'd want to know. My stomach turned. What kind of movement? I followed her Tuesday evening. She left work at 5:15. Drove east. Checked into a hotel under her maiden name. Mark arrived 10 minutes later. I said nothing. I've got photos. Lobby. Parking lot. Time-stamped. Clear as day. I gripped the phone tighter. You're sure it was him? Jorge didn't hesitate. Positive. Same guy in the banquet photos you gave us. Brown jacket, glasses. They hugged in the lobby. He had a small bag. They went up together. No signs of anyone else. My throat was dry. How long did they stay? About 3.5 hours. She checked out alone. He left through the rear entrance. We got footage there too. I closed my eyes. I didn't need to ask what that meant. There was nothing left to doubt. No more what-ifs. No more second-guessing myself, no more clinging to half-truths like they were safety nets. This was deliberate. Premeditated. Ongoing. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't some moment of weakness. It was a pattern. A double life lived right under my roof. Jorge emailed the photos. I opened the folder and scrolled in silence. There she was. Smiling. Hair tucked behind one ear like she always did when she was nervous. Wearing the green coat I bought her for Christmas last year. The one she said made her feel elegant. And there was Mark. Standing too close. Holding the elevator button. His hand brushing hers like it was muscle memory. It didn't even look awkward. It looked normal. Like they'd done this before. I stared at those images for a long time. Part of me wanted to look away. To shut the laptop and pretend I hadn't seen. But the rest of me? The part that had been silently unraveling for months? That part was calm. Because now I had truth. It didn't come with fireworks. No breakdown. No dramatic realization. Just this quiet understanding. She had made her choice. Now it was my turn. That night, I sat in the guest room. She was in the bedroom, our bedroom, probably reading, maybe scrolling through her phone, texting him goodnight, pretending everything was fine. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out a folder and began to gather everything. The messages. The screenshot ts. The photos. The receipts. One by one, I printed them out, placed them neatly in the folder, and sealed it in an envelope. I added something else too, my wedding ring. I hadn't worn it since the night of the banquet. It sat on my nightstand for a week, then in a drawer. Now it was nestled between the paper, quiet and final. Then I wrote a note. Nothing dramatic. Just 5 words.